What if I told you there was an easy and time-effective way to prevent injuries in your canine athletes? Or that I had one simple strategy that could improve your dog's performance, allowing their true potential to shine through? There are so many things in the dog sporting world that are not within our control. We don't design the courses, we can't change the weather, and we certainly can't predict what might happen to our dogs' bodies as they race through an agility course at top speed, or they leap off a dock, or they narrowly pass another dog in flyball. Many of us play a wide variety of sports with our dogs, but this does come with a potential risk of injury. Some that could sideline our dogs for a short period, but others that sideline our dogs for a much longer period. But this one simple strategy for preventing injuries is something we can control, and in my opinion is one of the most neglected injury prevention strategies out there. We all have canine athletes, and one of our goals is to compete in our dog sports for as long as possible, because a sideline dog is an unhappy dog, but let's be honest, an unhappy dog is an unhappy owner. Now, if you're watching this video right now, I know that you want to learn something new and critical to prevent injuries in your dog, but also to improve their performance, bring out the best in your canine athlete. So what is this one simple strategy that we can implement? If you guessed a proper warm-up and cool-down routine, you were right. This is a topic that is very near and dear to me. As a physiotherapist who's been practicing for 11 years, I'd rather be proactive than reactive, meaning I'd rather educate and prevent injuries from happening than managing them. The latter is always more difficult. Now, I formerly competed as a varsity hockey player and professional women's hockey referee. Athletics were my thing. I had a passion for them. And before every game, practice, or training, I always engaged in a very structured warm-up and cool-down routine. This was never missed. It was habitual, it was ingrained in me, and I viewed this routine as just as important as the game itself. Now, as a referee, we often had to compete in tournaments where we'd have anywhere between 5 to 7 games in a given day. So my body had to be well conditioned to maintain this pace, but what I did before, after, and between games was critical for my body's function, my output, and my overall performance. This is quite similar to many of the dog sports that we see today in that they have multiple runs and events over the course of the day. So really, similar considerations should be implemented in the dog sport world. Yet when I started up in canine sports in the late 90s, I made a huge mistake. I didn't translate my peak human performance over to my dogs. My amazing warm-up and cool-down routine that I had did not carry over to my dogs whatsoever. I had zero routine, and not once did I think about translating my warm-up and cool-down routine over to my dogs and how it might benefit their training or their competitions. The first dogs I competed with in the sport of agility were Wheaten Terriers. This was back in the late 90s, and they weren't overly drivey, but they were consistent and they were happy. And I remember being called up for our agility run years ago, and they'd say, Casey, up in 6 dogs, and I'd run to my car and I'd get my dog and I'd run him up to the ring, and we'd go in and we'd do our run and do our thing, and then we'd go back to the car, back in the crate, and voila, that was the extent of my warm-up and cool down. I didn't think about the potential risks that I was putting my dog in by neglecting and avoiding a warm-up and cool-down routine. And you know what the reality was? Is I just didn't know what to do. This was long before I started my canine rehab practice, and like you, I had so many questions and I wasn't sure how to go about it. How long do I do a warm-up for? What's important in a cool-down? Are there specific exercises that I should be considering in the sport that I'm doing? There were so many unknowns and many questions, and this just led me to avoiding the whole topic altogether and just continuing with my current practice routine, which was completely non-existent. Now fast forward to my first herding dog, Quinn, who's now 5. I learned very quickly that herding dogs are quite different than Wheaten Terriers. She was fast, she was full of life, and she showed absolutely no signs of self-preservation. It was in the first few weeks of having her that really the light bulb went off. How can I prevent injuries in my dog? It can't be much different than what I've been teaching my human counterpart patients for the last 11 years. Knowing that there were many external factors that I wasn't going to be able to control with Miss Quinn to prevent injuries, I started to seek out the ones that I could. A simple warm-up and cool-down routine is one thing that we can control to prevent injuries and improve our performance in our dogs. Think of all the things we already do for our dogs, whether it's massages or getting them therapeutic coats or going to rehab specialists. We're all doing great things, but I want to give you a tool that you can implement on your own that will reduce the chances of injuries and improve your dog's performance. So I decided to put together this ebook, and it's called The Warm-Up and Cool-Down of the Canine Athlete, an evidence-based approach to improving performance and preventing injury. Now, why did I go about and write this book? I wanted to keep the guesswork out of it for you. I wanted to make something that was simple, easy, and achievable for anybody that owned a canine athlete. Top canine competitors across North America have been using this book, and their overall feedback has been fantastic. There's no more guessing about this topic. Let's dive into what's in this 39-page ebook that you're about to purchase. So to start off, we look at why is warm-up and cool-down important. I think I already alluded in this video why it is so critical to have a structured warm-up and cool-down program. But this book is going to dive into it even deeper and really hit home the message as to why it is critical and how to best go about it. We have sport-specific considerations as well in this book. So I think we all have a really good idea of physically what's required of our dogs in the sports that we choose. But do you know which exercises that you should implement in your warm-up and cool-down that are about to match the sport and the activity that they're just about to do? Dogs move in 3 planes of motion, but not all sports are in 3 planes of motion. So we really have to make sure that we match those exercises to the activities that we're just about to do. This book's going to dive into those planes of motion and how to best choose the exercises for the sport that you're in. The evidence and science. So as an evidence-based clinician, it was really important for me when I wrote this book that my recommendations were based off the literature and the research, and that they weren't just being pulled out of thin air. So the research is clearly explained in this ebook as to why it is so important and why my recommendations are based off of it. There's more than 15 active and dynamic exercises. I will stress the active and dynamic part because there is no passive exercises in this book. All the exercises come with instructions and pictures in terms of how to train it and what sort of repetitions you want to do. There's also sample protocols. This will further keep the guesswork out of it for you, so if you're not sure which exercises to pull on after you've read through the book, I give you a couple sample protocols that you can follow along that will give a good overall warm-up and cool-down for your dog. Lastly, there's videos that you can purchase for a small additional price. These are live videos that you will see the actual exercise demonstrated. And it's not something that's required, you don't have to get it, but for some people that like videos, it just shows how the exercise is done and how the dog performs it. So 5 minutes is what I'm asking. I'm asking for 5 minutes before an activity and 5 minutes after an activity. That is a total of 10 minutes that can potentially save your dog from an injury and make them a better athlete. Don't wait and keep struggling with this. Let me help you build a proper warm-up and cool-down routine. So click on the link below and download the ebook, or you can also purchase the hard copy. But let's start minimizing injuries and improving our dog's performance today.